everyone, and thank you for joining us for our weekly briefing brought to you by the EPG of the Emergency Leadership Team. I'm joined by Mrs. Teresa Powell, Chief of Staff, Chief Mario Holland, Chief of LUPD, Dean Joshua Busby, Student Affairs, and Dean Joshua Snavely, School of Business. And I'm Dr. Ruth Jackson, Vice President for Academic Affairs. In today's webinar, we will provide our weekly status update for COVID-19. We'll provide an update to the CARES Act HBCU grant. We'll remind everyone about the pre-enrollment incentive program, as well as our housing move out. We'll spend the majority of our time, we've dedicated the majority of this webinar to allowing for any questions that you may have related to university operations and plans for COVID-19. And as always, we'll end by reflecting on resilience. So I'll ask Mrs. Powell to provide our weekly update. Mrs. Powell?
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. So as we've done each week with our webinar, we want to give an update from week to week on where we stand within the state, within the Logan County vicinity, and also within our university community in regards to the case count that we're seeing, just to build transparency and ensure that we all are aware of the status as of now. So as you can see, as of today, at noon today, we did receive our numbers stating that we've seen over a 10% increase in total cases around the state of Oklahoma. The active cases within the state have also increased, as well as the deaths within the state. While we're seeing an increase statewide, we are thankfully seeing a decrease in the Logan County community regarding our active cases. So as you can see, we do have an increase in the total cases. However, we are seeing a decrease in the active cases and thankfully no increase in the death within the Logan County community. And finally, among all of our Langston University sites, we have 47 cases and 6 active cases. We've been holding very steady there and doing all that we can to ensure that we're providing this report week to week. And now I will ask Dean Snavely to give us an update on our CARES Act HBCU grant. Dean Snavely.
Thanks, Mrs. Powell. Good afternoon, everyone. Glad to be with you. To date, 845 of our Langston students have now received the HBCU grant funding provided under the CARES Act. The total amount of those awards is just under 2.4 million. So 845 students have received close to $2.4 million total at Langston University. In a few cases where there were students who had incomplete applications, we're now reviewing those, our committee is, to determine whether they might have any eligibility under a phase of award of the Higher Education Emergency Relief Fund. So if a student completed the application, but maybe there was an error or an issue with that application, or perhaps the FAFSA wasn't on file, or a few other sort of technical matters, we're working with the committee and those students to determine whether another funding application can be made through the HERF funding. Some students that are in this process already have received some correspondence around their eligibility and these second round of funding appeals. Those are currently also being reviewed by the committee on a case-by-case basis to be verified and to go through the process that we've outlined. So that is your CARES Act HBCU grant update, the latest as of today, November 9th. We're excited for those students and glad that we were able to facilitate that funding in short order. With that, I will turn it over to Dean Busby to go through some other key reminders for our students as we approach the end of the flex and in-person portion of the semester.
Thanks, Dean Snavely. And so good afternoon to everybody. What I want to do is just to provide some reminders based off of the webinar that was hosted last week that focused around our protocols, move out protocols for residential life and housing services. We just want to remind our faculty, staff, and our students, most especially our students, that all of these protocols listed here are designed to ensure the healthy environment on our campus. It is critical that our residents follow these protocols to ensure that they are able to perform the disinfection of their residential spaces. And so what we're saying is that, of course, as we stated last week, is that every room and living space on campus will be disinfected by our facilities team over the break. We have requested and are requiring that students pack all their belongings to avoid any damage to your property and belongings during that disinfection process. Housing is going to is available, and actually now you can go to the clubhouse and pick up boxes to begin to box up your belongings and to assist with those packings. And so also I think it's about two more weeks or so, two and a half weeks that you have students to pack up your unit. And if rooms are left unpacked, the resident could be charged as much as a $200 fine. So not only when students check out is their rooms have to be packed up, and we're not saying that you have to take everything home with you, as long as you meet the requirements as stated in the communications that have been sent out. But if your room is not packed up and boxed up, you could face a $200 fine, as well as if you do not turn your key in. You do have to turn your key in. If you do not turn your key in, you would be subject to an additional $375 fine. So again, I want to make sure that our students are reminded of the protocols and the processes that we talked about last week, because again, as we stated, it is very critical that our residents follow these protocols to ensure that the housing environments are safe. And now I'm going to turn it over to Chief Holland, who's going to talk about our timelines for the move out.
Thank you, Dean, and welcome and good afternoon, everyone. So to follow up with Dean Busby's protocols that he just mentioned earlier, I wanted to let you all know that on November 20th is your last day to obtain an academic schedule to leave belongings in your room. That's very important. And also with that, you want to make sure that you contact your advisor as soon as possible to enroll and secure your schedule as well. November 21st, all residents must be checked out of housing by noon. This is to ensure that we are adhering to the protocols, but we want to be able to do so in a safe and efficient manner. So remember those dates, jot them down. We will post them as well. And now I will turn it over to Dr. Jackson.
Thanks, Chief. That's a perfect segue into this next reminder. Want to make sure that students are aware that once again, the university is offering a pre-enrollment incentive. This incentive is available to students who pre-enroll by our priority deadline of this Friday, November 13th at 5:00 p.m. Students, if you have not already done so, please contact, as Chief said, your academic advisor. They're ready and waiting for you to contact them to schedule a time to select your courses for the spring 2021 semester. As a reminder, the incentive is a $100 credit toward your spring 2021 bill. But in order to be eligible for this incentive, students must have a FAFSA on file with the Office of Student Financial Aid. Students must have a balance of $200 or below. There could be no holds that would prevent enrollment. This would include bursar holds, a judicial hold. Students, remember to complete your 1:2 training that's required each term. And students must be in good academic standing with the university. So that also means that students who are on academic probation or students who are currently under academic suspension are not eligible for this credit. Students who are on academic probation, we want you to enroll as well, but unfortunately you will not be able to enroll until the fall 2020 grades have been processed. In order to receive the credit, students must return next semester and know that the credit will be applied to your accounts after February 4th, 2021. Again, if you have any questions about pre-enrollment, please reach out to the academic success coaches in University College if you have fewer than 40 credits, and for students who have more than 40 credits, contact your department if you don't know who your academic advisor is. And you'll also be able to find a list of academic advisors on the university website. So we want to spend a few minutes creating an opportunity for open dialogue, an open forum for our university community. If you have any questions, any perhaps ideas and suggestions for future webinar topics, we'd love to hear from you. Please put your questions or comments in the chat or in the Q&A section. So at this point, we'll pause and see if there are any questions. So Mrs. Powell, there is one. The first question, does the $100 credit apply to urban campus students as well?
Yes, it does. It applies to any student who pre-enrolls by the deadline of 5 p.m. on Friday. So as long as you meet the requirements to pre-enroll and contact your academic advisor or success coach to do so, then you'd be eligible for that incentive. Great question.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Powell. Okay, so there's a question currently. It's open enrollment for our insurance selections. Someone has asked for the link to the open enrollment for the insurance change period. So can someone direct, Mrs. Powell, could you direct this person to information about open enrollment?
Yeah, I'll actually, I can do one better and I can't see who's asking what. So as long as you're receiving emails from the Office of Public Relations, I'll ensure that an email goes out this afternoon as a reminder for that open enrollment period. But if you'd like to email me directly or Mrs. Buckley directly, of course, we can help you with that as well.
Are there any other questions, again, or suggestions for topics that you would like covered on our Monday webinar briefing? We'd love to hear from you.
As you can, if you can't see there in the chat, AVP Buckley has listed the information and the directions on how you can actually go in and update your benefits and enrollment there. So if you have any additional questions, she actually dropped her cell phone there as well. So feel free to reach out to her if you have any other questions as well. But also be on the lookout that email is going to be forthcoming, as Mrs. Powell stated.
Okay, there's a suggestion for a future webinar topic related to the bookstore, and perhaps inviting one of our colleagues from Follett to come and talk to us a little bit about ebooks. So thank you for that suggestion. We'll make note of it and see if we can work something out with the Follett team. So thank you for that. Professor Henderson in Social Sciences wanted to make the specific announcement that there are appointments available. So please reach out to her. All of our sociology, criminal justice, corrections majors, Professor Henderson says they're accepting appointments for pre-enrollment scheduling. So thank you, Professor Henderson. Okay, we have another question. Dean Snavely, could you go over the levels of the campus operations and postures related to COVID-19 procedures? Please go over the levels of campus operations.
Happy to. Great question. So if you'll recall, there are three different, well, there's four separate levels that we have on the campus. So we're currently in the first level. I was going to see, Ms. Powell, do we have easy access to bring that up on the screen or no? Probably not. Okay. So we'll just walk through them briefly. The first level is sort of what we're in, or what we would be in traditionally. Where all coursework is traditional, events are regular, housing is regular, operations normal, research activities go on as normal. From a level of disease standpoint, that's what's called endemic, or the community baseline disease is sort of regular. In the next level, which is the level we're in now, which could either be a level of disease of epidemic or pandemic, where we're having flex and hybrid instruction. There are some campus events, but they have to be under 10, no double occupancy. We have hybrid operations with safeguards. So in that level, we're looking at 0 to 3% is our university case level that keeps us in that operational posture, which typically would be on the main campus, for example, somewhere between 0 and 30 active cases. So I think throughout our time since reopening the campus July 20th, we haven't exceeded anywhere close to that. We've been around, in this 5 to 12 level of active cases. So next level after that would be a little more heightened protocols and even more strict. So we would be somewhere that's an active case count of between 3 and 5% of the community. And so somewhere between 35 and 75 active cases. We would make an effort in that scenario to keep students on campus, but have much more restrictive movement and all remote and virtual classes. So it would be quite heightened when we get to that point, but still have students on campus. And then in the last level, anytime we exceed that 5% threshold, so over 75 approximately cases, depending how many people are living and working on campus at the time, then we would be transitioning to all remote and only granting sort of emergency exceptions of people living on the campus. So again, that will be, I believe we've released, but if not, we can check and make sure that revised appendix, which includes those different levels. But the key trigger for us is around that active case count, which we update you on every week, and we'll continue to do that. So good question. Happy to answer more questions about that offline, Christina or others through LUELT.
Thanks, Dean, for that review. If there are no other questions at this time, we'll move on, but I want to remind you, as always, the LUELT at Langston.edu is always available for questions or suggestions for future webinar topics. So thanks to all of you who had questions and for the suggestion of a future topic. So keep them coming. So this week, Mrs. Powell will bring our item, our highlighted topic as we reflect on resilience, one of my favorite parts of the weekly webinar. Mrs. Powell?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Jackson. So we're very excited about our resilience piece this week. As you know, the pandemic is the perfect excuse not to hold a big event like the President's Scholarship Gala, but we are lucky enough to have a team at our university within institutional advancement and external affairs that came together and really worked to find a creative way to make sure that our students did not miss out on the scholarship dollars that are raised through this event that we have year after year. This is a milestone event within the university community. It's something we look forward to year after year, and certainly our students really depend on the funds that are raised through this event on an annual basis. So our friends in IAE worked really carefully and closely together and safely together to ensure that we could offer you a really dynamic and exciting experience for this year's President's Scholarship Gala. And they did this through some unconventional means. So we actually hired a videographer to film our gala pieces in advance. And you're going to see this Thursday night, November 12th at 7 p.m., a beautiful film that will be premiered on Facebook Live, Facebook Premiere. And it's going to showcase all of our students' accomplishments, everything that you're used to seeing at our live gala in person. We're going to bring those components to you virtually. So here you'll see our videographer getting footage of Ms. Langston as she shares her experience and her story with the university. And we also have our team capturing the beautiful of our Langston University choir they performed for the virtual gala. So once again, the pandemic would have been the perfect excuse to just simply say that we could not hold the gala this year. However, our team came together and found a way to make it a reality. So on the screen, you'll see the members of the gala committee, this year's gala committee that made all of this happen. So if you work with these individuals, if you see them, if you want to send them an email, just thanking them. And certainly we are so grateful to them for their work and making sure that our students would still benefit from a beautiful gala. So once again, Thursday this week, Thursday, November 12th, 7 p.m., Facebook premiere. You'll have an opportunity to watch the gala live. You'll have an opportunity to give live. We still, certainly our friends in IAE would tell you that they are still accepting gifts today, tomorrow, and beyond Thursday. So we look forward to this experience. Our students look forward to sharing their stories with you. And we just want to recognize them for their resilience and their creativity in ensuring that this beautiful tradition would continue.
Thank you, Mrs. Powell, and spread the word. I think the beauty of our gala being presented through Facebook Premiere is that more people than ever before will have access to it and have a chance to see the wonderful things that are going on at Langston University and hear from our amazingly talented students. So spread the word, share it with your friends and colleagues. We're very excited. The need remains, and so I'm very happy to thank the committee for the work that they've done. So with that, we've come to the end of our weekly webinar. We thank you for your attention. We thank you for attending. And with that, as always, take care, Lions.